You know that feeling you get when you're talking to an AI? That little jolt of, well, magic? It almost feels like you're talking to a mind from the future. But what if I told you that inside that futuristic mind is a mystery so deep, even the people who built it have no idea how it works? Yeah, today we're diving headfirst into the enigma of AI's black box.
It's honestly incredible, isn't it? You ask for a poem about something as huge as a black hole, and just, boom, you get something like, darkness pulls things close. Time itself begins to bend. Light cannot escape. It feels like real intelligence. It feels like creativity. But what's really going on is something more like pattern recognition on a godlike scale.
And that right there, that is a multi-trillion-dollar question. I mean, if you ask the AI how it did it, it might just write you another haiku. Because the really shocking truth is, a lot of the time, it has absolutely no idea what it just did.
So this brings us to the real heart of what we're talking about today. It feels like we've built these incredible magicians, right? But the crazy part is, even the engineers who are supposedly behind the curtain, they can't always explain how the tricks work. And this is what we call the AI black box problem.
You see, with old-school software, a person wrote every single rule, every if-then statement. But modern AI, it's built on these things called neural networks, and they learn by just consuming enormous amounts of data, creating connections so incredibly complex that trying to trace a single decision is pretty much impossible.
And this is exactly why this isn't just some techie puzzle for engineers to solve. I mean, think about it. When an AI denies someone a loan, or flags a medical scan, or like here, rejects a job application, and we can't ask it why, well, that's not just frustrating, it can be deeply unethical and honestly, pretty dangerous.
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we need to take a step back from all the modern tech for a second and jump into the world of philosophy with a really famous thought experiment that gets to the very nature of what it means to understand something.
So way back in 1980, long before ChatGPT was even a glimmer in someone's eye, a philosopher named John Searle came up with this idea to challenge what he called the strong AI hypothesis, which is basically the belief that a really, really complex computer could actually have a mind.
So just picture this for a second. You're the person in the room. You can't speak a word of Chinese. You're just getting these symbols pushed through a slot that you don't recognize, but you have a giant rule book in English that says, if you see this squiggle, send out that squiggle. And you get really, really good at it. So good that people on the outside are convinced they're having a deep, meaningful conversation with a native speaker. But you don't understand a single thing. You're just matching symbols.
And that's the punchline of the whole thing. The man in the room, just like a computer, is a master of syntax. He knows the rules, the grammar, but he has zero semantics. He has no clue what any of it actually means. He's a perfect simulation of understanding without any of the real stuff going on inside.
Okay, so that was the theory from 40 years ago. But what happens when we apply this idea to a real, cutting-edge AI today? Well, some recent research has given us a fascinating and frankly super bizarre look inside one of these black boxes.
So researchers at Anthropic, they use this new method to try and visualize the internal thought process, if you can call it that, of their AI model Claude. And they gave it a really simple math problem, something any kid could solve with basic logic.
But the way Claude did it was anything but logical. It didn't do arithmetic. No, instead, it kind of activated concepts related to the numbers, it searched its massive memory for text patterns of similar additions, and then it essentially made a highly educated text-based guess. It's almost like it just vibed its way to the right answer.
And here is the absolute kicker. This is the wild part. When the researchers asked Claude to explain how it got the answer, it gave the perfect textbook response for how a human would do the math. An answer that was a complete and total fabrication. It had nothing to do with the bizarre process it actually used.
This is just such powerful evidence. It shows that Claude isn't just a black box to us. It's a black box to itself. It has no self-awareness, no introspection. It's basically the Chinese room thought experiment in action, a perfect output with zero internal understanding of how it got there.
Now, before we get too comfortable thinking about how superior our own minds are, let's just turn the mirror around for a second. Because if we're being really honest with ourselves, we are all walking around with the original black box right between our ears.
I mean, look at this. On one side, you've got the neural connections in a human brain. On the other, a computational graph for an AI. They're not so different, are they? Both are just these massive, tangled webs of interconnected nodes.
Think about it for a sec.
Can you really explain how you came up with that funny joke you told yesterday? Or why a specific random memory just popped into your head? We give it nice labels, right? We call it intuition, or creativity, or a gut feeling. But we can't actually trace the step-by-step logic. We think AI hallucinations are weird, but are they really that different from a dream or a sudden flash of artistic inspiration?
And this brings us right back to the real-world stakes, because this mystery isn't just some philosophical debate. It has very real consequences. When a self-driving car crashes, investigators can't just ask the system why it made a certain decision. When AI systems show bias against certain groups, it's incredibly hard to find the source and fix it. Accountability, it becomes almost impossible.
So after all this, where does that leave us? Well, we've built these machines that are brilliant, they're baffling, and in some ways, they're deeply, weirdly familiar.
You know, maybe our discomfort with AI's black box is really because it holds up a mirror to our own minds. We love to think of ourselves as logical, rational beings, but so much of what actually makes us human, our insights, our emotions, our choices, it all comes from a place that's just as mysterious.
And maybe that's the real takeaway here. In our quest to understand this new, alien-seeming intelligence, we might just be forced to finally get a better handle on the beautiful, messy, and mysterious intelligence we've had inside us all along. What do you think?